Hi everyone, welcome. I'll take a brief about governance in general. The pitch is very small, 10 minutes, before we move on to what we are doing at House of Commons, right? So we take governance very lightly when we talk about governance, it's something that needs to be done. But when we speak about the world that we live in, it's run by governments. Like governments have been framed to do decision making, to run organizations, etc. And when you come to Web3, one of the primary things that governance does is enable decentralized decision making, right? You want to involve community, you want to involve token holders that come participate in whatever you're doing. I mean, every speaker that came here before us, you saw them show slides, you saw them talk about governance especially in Polkadot, and we essentially enable governance for Polkadot, right? It started as a governance platform, the vision has evolved much, and I'll introduce you to the House of Commons, but a reminder that everyone who's here today is because of governance that happened on Polkadot. A treasury proposal was put on Polkassembly. It was first discussed, then it went through on-chain voting, where everybody came together, asked questions. How much money are you asking for? What are you asking for? Who's going to come for the event? And then they took a call to vote for or against the proposal. Did the proposal win with 100% majority? No. There were people who were still skeptical, and that's the power of governance, right? So the agenda, I'm going to keep it very simple. We'll briefly introduce Polkassembly, which is where governance on Polkadot happens. Then we'll move to Town Hall, which is a new platform that we're coming up with. Then talk about Polkasafe and how all of that comes together in the House of Commons. So Polkassembly was a project that started inside Parity. Governance was always the prime focus for Polkadot. Right, so that's where governance came in. We became the primary governance forum, started inside Parity, moved out to be a separate entity. We're being constantly supported by grants. All those grants, again, came through the treasury, through a decentralized voting platform process that happened on our platform. We're the leading governance platform for Substrate ecosystem, just like Polkadot is built on Substrate. There's a lot more that can be built on Substrate. We're seeing more and more people adopt this technology, and we support governance, and we're kind of the only one who supports governance for all Substrate chains, right? In Polkadot, you have a lot of blockchains. Polkadot, Kusama included, there are about 100 plus blockchains. We support majority of them, 50 plus blockchains on us, 70% market share. But when you go and see on-chain, you'll see that, people create proposals every day. Like you come, you say that you want to build XYZ, you ask the community for funding, and discussion starts to happen. It moves to an on-chain proposal, referenda, especially with OpenGov, which has become much more flexible, agile, focused on delegation, etc. Right? But if you look back at any ecosystem, I think Polkadot stands at the top of it when it comes to giving out grants in a decentralized way, especially. Unlike other ecosystems where everything is centralized, Polkadot has given out grants worth more than, I think, 250 million plus, and so has Kusama given more than 50 million plus. So combined just across Polkadot and Kusama, you have a number of 300 million plus given to people who are building for Polkadot or building just general Web3 applications. So I think that's a great moment, right? And now I haven't even spoken about parachains. Each parachain that's on us, be it Integrity that's going to come, or any other parachain, Moonbee, Makala, Aster, anybody who uses us, have their on-chain treasury, have their own governance product that they use to fund, right? So you see our partners, this proposal that was Polkadot Now India was voted and executed on Polkassembly itself, right? But we started, as I said, Polkassembly was a governance platform, but the vision just evolved to be much, much farther. Taking a brief moment and talking about your identity, right? In Web 2 or in general world where you live in, your identity is the primary thing. You create an identity on LinkedIn, your resume, your GitHub. But when you come to Web 3, what's your identity? GitHub is one of the one where you contribute, where you do open source development. That's your identity. Now let's talk about the other thing, your wallet. Right? People talk about wallet being the center of identity, wallet representing who you are, what you do. People associate DeFi score with it. People have NFTs that reflect what identity is. But we feel that contributor identity is primarily three things. Right? If you're a wallet or a person that's contributing to the ecosystem, what are the primary things you'll do? you'll participate in governance. That's one way you make the project go ahead. You contribute to the growth of the ecosystem. You create proposals, you vote, you comment, you discuss, you have heated debates, etc. So governance becomes one of your primary identity, right? And there comes delegation, there comes a reputation. I mean, today most of the people that you know are active participants in the governance. That's their reputation that they've built. They have an on-chain identity, which is how you know it's the wallet that they belong to, but you being an anon can be participating in so many proposals and creating an identity without revealing your original identity. So governance becomes one, right? The other thought that we've been having for a while is open source contribution. So in Polkadot, there is nobody that funds open source goods except treasuries. There's no open good funding mechanism. And if we go to look at what open source funding could do, we'll come to that later, but what it's done marvelously for other ecosystems, it's pretty insane, right? And the third is question bounties. So if you're contributing to open source, you're building a reputation, you're doing work for the project or building good things that adds to your reputation. But what if you're not a developer? You donate, right? You have reasons to donate to projects that are building. And that should give you a reputation too. And it's a contributor's reputation. You're contributing to the ecosystem to help it grow, right? And then come question bounties. I mean, question bounties are the most brilliant way Web3 has innovated to bring everybody aligned. There are incentives for tasks to do. They help you grow. They help you achieve marvelous things that you can as a protocol. And it allows community to participate. Sometimes there are incentives, sometimes there aren't. So bounties range from like writing a letter to news, everything. Polkadot has its own bounties. I mean, today if you want to host an event, there's an event bounty with 1 million plus dots, right? That's 7 million in today's value, dedicated to supporting events, hackathons, etc. that happen on Polkadot and for the ecosystem in general. So all these together, we feel, come to build an identity for you. That's where Polkassembly is evolving beyond the core governance platform. You build your identity by participating in governance cross-chain, right? All parachains, 70 of them use us to create an identity for their users, while we are building open source contribution mechanisms with quadratic voting, partnering with a few people to bring that here, and enabling people to do quests, bounties, etc., which all add on to your identity. And you eventually create an on-chain identity which you can keep not just in this ecosystem, but take beyond, right? So that's the beauty of Polkadot. Town Hall, it's a new product that we're launching, briefly mentioning. Polkadot is on-chain governance, but not everything can be discussed on on-chain governance because it's executable code. You need off-chain governance. You need discussions to happen where it's just a vote of, should we do X, Y, Z? Should we keep the chairs in this manner or not? People want to have a decentralized voting mechanism. When Polkadot's logo was selected, it happened via a discussion on Polkassembly. Discussions are now evolving to Town Hall, which is a much more comprehensive product, which talks about using governance and decentralized blockchain mechanisms to take decisions, not just for Web3 protocols. I mean, we are talking to colleges that want to use this platform to say that, you know, there are clubs where we want to support decentralized decision making. We have stakeholders, but we don't want one person to be taking a decision. That's where Town Hall comes in, where it allows you, and it will allow you to have NFT-based voting, quadratic voting, token-based voting, whatever you need, off-chain with obviously on-chain integrations as and when you want. Right, but the time's running short, so I'll quickly run through what happened next. We helped distribute 300 million plus from the treasury, but those ended up going to centralized wallets. Unlike other ecosystems, Polkadot did not have a good support for multi-sig wallets. I mean, there's a multi-sig wallet backend, but the UI is just not worth it. So when we compare to Ethereum, 99.9% versus 0.1. So this number stands at 40 billion assets are being managed via multi-sigs on Ethereum. But when you look at Polkadot and Kusama, it's just hardly 350 million. And maybe across the top 10 parachains combined, 500 million. Why? I mean, the best way to manage your assets in Web3, especially when you're running an organization, a project, a fund, you want to give out money to people, multisig is the way. Your assets are secure, your team is aligned, there's security, there's anonymity, everything involved, right? So the security of multisigs has been underexplored in Polkadot, and we're solving that with Polkasafe. So Polkasafe is a platform that we built with a team externally, right? Now we've acquired the team. So the idea is, can we make multi-sig management better? With starting with a platform which is as great as this, where everything is so intuitive, be it transaction queues, history, addresses, various wallets, you can do cross-chain transactions, cross-chain assets, everything that you need. This platform eventually evolves into the app section that you see, where people will be able to manage payroll, treasury management, have cross-chain payment functionality, with notifications built in so that, multi-sigs have a problem that people don't know who to sign, when to sign. That is being solved here, and then we have a Polkasafe SDK, which opens the ground for more and more people to come and build applications. I mean, the Ethereum ecosystem, the DAO infrastructure was supported on multisigs, and we feel Polkadot has a much better potential to do that with Polkasafe and the SDK that we have built. House of Commons, right? Coming to the philosophy of House of Commons, why the name? Some people here in Bangalore relate it to a place here in Bangalore. But the idea usually comes from governments and parliaments. So House of Commons is the name for the UK Parliament, right? What does the Parliament do? How do governments run? How do organizations run? It's decision making for governance or changing what is happening, changing the laws, changing how a country is run, etc. And also the second part is budgeting. You see financial budgets that happen every day. So House of Commons is like creating this environment where it's products that can help solve the blockchain's problem by creating an ecosystem which enables growth, right, which helps take decision making easier and distribution of funds easier. So you start with town hall where you discuss off-chain matters, you move to Polkassembly where you participate in governance, build an on-chain identity, move the funds to Polkasafe where from there you enable an ecosystem of contributors that have built identity by participating in things that you do, but are also being paid and managed via Polkasafe, which provides like the most secure and safe mechanism to manage your assets in Polkadot. So that's House of Commons, everyone. This is the first time we've introduced House of Commons to the world, and I'm excited to show what we're going to unleash in the next coming few months and years.
Thank you, Just. That was very, very interesting. You want to go for a Q&A? I wonder
sure.
if we have
if
time.
If anybody has questions, just maybe one or two we can take.
Thank you, Jaski. That was a very interesting presentation to start. The question now is that we talk about governance. The issue is that whosoever has more coins actually has more weightage or more say in making the decision. So how does that affect? Because when you talk about voting outside in offline world, one person has one vote. But then, there's this dilemma wherein you split between whether you give that weightage to a person who's more effective or contributing more effectively, or because we know that multi-wallets can be created at split second. So how can you bring that, and how does this solve the real world situation of bringing the governance online?
Two things. One is where I'm gonna bring the brilliance of Polkadot and OpenGov, right? You have an option of conviction voting. Let's say if you have one Kosama or one dot and you wanna vote with higher conviction, you can lock your dot for a year or two and you have 8x the voting power than you have today. A whale might not do that, right? Apart from that, there's a lot of focus with OpenGov on delegation, which is where we're building a delegation dashboard where you'll be able to see who's participating in governance, what are they really doing. Have they been voting? Have they been voting right? Are they really looking forward for the best of the ecosystem? All of that can be tracked in Web3 already, right? Through blockchains, we are creating an interface where you can see in a much intuitive manner. So see who your participants are. It makes delegation easy, which is how voting should be, right? I mean, today, I might not have the technical knowledge to vote on an ink-based proposal, but somebody else does. So if I can evaluate who in the tech industry is doing a good job of governance, has sustainable knowledge of the topic that is being voted upon, I delegate my votes to them, right? That is where it comes, where we talk about identity. When you're creating and participating in governance, you're building an identity. The beauty of the real world versus Web3 is today in the real world, if I elect somebody, I have zero transparency on what they're doing. What decisions did they vote on? What did they do inside when it came to using the responsibilities that were endowed upon them? Blockchain solves for that. Web3 solves for that. You have clear visibility. And then there's agile delegation, there's reputation. If you take a bad decision, it's impacted. I can undelegate from you and delegate it to somebody else. Right? So that changes how governance used to fundamentally work. That is where we're bringing town hall, where a reputation is linked to any participation in governance, where now that you move out and say that, a government I've voted upon, I want to know what the MLA has been voting on. I can find out. It's all on chain. If I give you a clear, visible way to see what's happening there, come see. If you don't feel like, vote him out. That option does not exist in Web2. You can't vote your MLAs out unless their tenure ends, right? So Web3 allows you that. Undelegate your tokens. Pass a motion to remove them as somebody who are at a position. All that is possible with Web3. And we'll see more Web3 governance move to solve problems of Web2. Like Web2 governance, decision making is hugely centralized, and we see Web3, Polkadot, Polkassembly, and Town Hall solving for those problems eventually.